One Friday evening, I was bored and scrolling through Snapchat, checking out stories. I saw a lot of my friends were out partying, and I felt a bit of FOMO since I had decided to have a chill night at home. To entertain myself, I started taking random snaps around my apartment. Nothing out of the ordinary. Just silly faces, my dinner, a quick tour of my place, the usual stuff. Around 10 p.m., I got a snap from an unknown user. I don't remember the exact name, but it seemed like a bot or something. I opened the snap, and it was a blurry photo of a street. No message, no context, just a photo of a street. I figured it was some spam account and ignored it. Over the next hour, I kept getting snaps from this account. Each snap was a photo of different streets and locations around Dallas. It was getting weird because these places were all relatively close to where I lived. I shrugged it off as some prank or maybe even a friend messing with me, but I started to get a bit anxious. Then around midnight, I got a snap that made my heart race. It was a photo of my apartment building. At this point, I was genuinely freaked out. I checked my locks, closed my blinds, and even peered out through the peephole in my door. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe someone I knew was messing with me. I decided to confront whoever it was. I sent a snap back asking who it was, but got no reply. Another snap came in, and this time, it was a picture of the hallway right outside my apartment door. My hands started shaking. This was no longer funny. I debated calling the police, but what would I say? Someone is sending me creepy pictures? I didn't want to overreact. I called my friend Jake, who lived a few blocks away. Jake was always the calm, level-headed type. When I told him what was happening, he said he'd come over and check things out. While I waited, I got another snap. This one was from inside the building, a few floors below mine. I locked myself in my bathroom, heart pounding, trying to stay as quiet as possible. Jake arrived about 15 minutes later. He called me to let him in, so I peeked out of my apartment and saw him standing in the hallway. I quickly unlocked the door and pulled him inside. He could see how scared I was. He took my phone and looked at the snaps. Jake wasn't easily spooked, but even he looked concerned. We decided to check the building together. Jake grabbed a baseball bat I had in my closet, and we cautiously made our way down the stairs, floor by floor. We didn't see anyone suspicious. The building was eerily quiet, and my anxiety wasn't subsiding. When we got back to my apartment, Jake suggested I block the user and report them. I did as he said, feeling a bit better with him there. We sat down, trying to figure out who could have been behind this. Then my phone buzzed again. Another snap from a different username appeared. I didn't want to open it, but Jake insisted. It was a photo of me and Jake in the stairwell from just a few minutes ago. My blood ran cold. Someone had been watching us the whole time. We looked at each other, realizing this was way more serious than we thought. Jake called the police and explained the situation. They said they'd send someone over to check things out. Meanwhile, Jake and I sat in my apartment, all the lights on, every lock secured. The minutes felt like hours. I kept checking my phone, but no new snaps came in. When the police arrived, they did a thorough sweep of the building. They didn't find anyone or anything out of the ordinary. They told me to be cautious and report any further incidents. I felt a little better having the police involved, but still the whole thing was deeply unsettling. Jake stayed over that night. Neither of us slept much. Every little noise had me on edge. The next morning, I went through my snap history, trying to make sense of it all. I noticed something strange. In one of the photos from earlier that night, I saw a reflection in a window. It was faint, but it looked like a person. It sent chills down my spine. Jake and I decided to do some detective work of our own. We started by talking to my neighbors, asking if they'd seen anyone suspicious. Most people hadn't noticed anything unusual, but one elderly lady on the first floor mentioned seeing a man she didn't recognize hanging around the building a few times that week. She described him as tall, wearing a hoodie, and always seemed to be looking at his phone. Armed with this information, we went to the building's management to check if there were any security cameras. Unfortunately, the only cameras were in the lobby and parking garage, and they didn't cover much of the hallways or stairwells. We asked to see the footage anyway. The manager was hesitant, but agreed. Reviewing the footage was tedious. We saw the usual comings and goings of residents, but nothing particularly alarming. Just when we were about to give up, Jake spotted something. Around 11:30 p.m., a figure in a hoodie entered the building and took the stairs. They were carrying something, possibly a phone, and seemed to be deliberately avoiding the cameras. We showed the footage to the police. They took it seriously and promised to investigate further, but without a clear view of the person's face. It wasn't much to go on. I felt frustrated and scared, but at least I wasn't dealing with it alone. Over the next few days, I was extra cautious. I barely left my apartment, and when I did, I always had someone with me. Jake checked in on me regularly, and I made sure to stay in well-lit, populated areas. The snaps stopped, and I started to think maybe it was over. Then, about a week later, I got another snap from an unknown user. This time, it was a video. My hands trembled as I opened it. The video was of me sitting on my couch, taken from outside my window. I was horrified. Whoever this was, they knew where I lived, and they were still watching me. I immediately called Jake and the police. Jake rushed over, and the police arrived shortly after. They took my phone as evidence and assured me they were doing everything they could to track this person down. They also assigned more patrols to my area and suggested I stay with a friend for a while. I took their advice and stayed with Jake for a few days. It was a relief to not be alone, but I couldn't shake the paranoia. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart would race. I deleted Snapchat and made all my social media accounts private. I even considered moving to a different apartment. The police kept me updated on their progress, but there weren't many leads. They traced the IP addresses of the accounts, but they led to public Wi-Fi networks, making it difficult to pinpoint the culprit. They did, however, increase their presence in my neighborhood, which was somewhat reassuring. One night while I was staying at Jake's place, we were watching a movie, trying to take my mind off everything. I got a text from an unknown number. It read, "You can't hide forever." I showed it to Jake, and he immediately called the police. They told us to stay put and that they'd send someone over. Within minutes, a squad car pulled up outside. The officers took the phone and promised to trace the number. They also advised me to change my number and get a new phone. I did as they suggested, hoping it would help. Despite all the precautions, the feeling of being watched lingered. I started therapy to deal with the anxiety and fear. My therapist suggested various coping mechanisms, which helped, but it was a long road to feeling safe again. Months went by, and slowly, life started to feel normal. I moved to a new apartment in a different part of Dallas, closer to Jake. I didn't use social media as much, and when I did, I was extremely careful about what I shared. One day, I got a call from the police. They had arrested someone in connection to my case. It was a man who lived a few blocks from my old apartment. He had a history of stalking and had been caught with photos and videos of various people, including me. The relief I felt was immense. Finally, it was over. Looking back, I learned a lot from this experience. I'm much more cautious about my online presence and who I interact with. I also realized the importance of having a support system. Without Jake, I don't know how I would have gotten through it. So if you're reading this, please be careful. The internet is a wonderful place, but it can also be dangerous. Protect your privacy, be aware of your surroundings, and don't hesitate to reach out for help if something feels off. It all started when I went on a weekend hiking trip to the Rocky Mountain National Park with a few friends. We were excited to get away from the city, enjoy some nature, and of course, document our adventure on Snapchat. We spent the first day hiking, taking pictures, and just enjoying the scenery. On the second day, I decided to wake up early and go for a solo hike to capture the sunrise. My friends were still asleep, so I left a note and headed out with my phone and a small backpack. The trail I chose was supposed to be an easy one, leading to a beautiful overlook. As I reached the overlook, I took out my phone to snap the breathtaking view. I posted a few pictures and videos tagging my location. After a while, I decided to head back to our campsite. As I walked back, I noticed a few people on the trail, but nothing out of the ordinary. When I returned to the campsite, my friends were awake and making breakfast. We spent the rest of the day exploring different trails and enjoying each other's company. That evening, we gathered around a campfire, sharing stories and roasting marshmallows. Later that night, as I was lying in my tent, I got a notification on my phone. It was a Snapchat from an unknown username. I assumed it was someone who had seen my earlier snaps and was just engaging with my story. I opened it, and it was a picture of the overlook I had been at that morning. The sender commented about the view being nice. Feeling a little uneasy, I brushed it off as someone being friendly. I responded positively and went to sleep. The next day, we packed up and headed back to Denver. On the drive back, I got another snap from the same account. This time, it was a photo of our campsite taken from the woods. The caption mentioned how fun camping was. This really started to creep me out. I showed my friends, and they were equally disturbed. We tried to rationalize it, thinking maybe it was someone who had been camping nearby and had seen us. But the fact that they found me on Snapchat and sent those photos felt too invasive. Back in Denver, I tried to forget about it and get back to my routine. A few days went by without any new snaps from that account, and I started to feel more at ease. Then one night, as I was getting ready for bed, I got another notification. It was a snap from the same person. This time, it was a video. The video was of someone walking through the woods at night, the flashlight beam bouncing around, illuminating trees and bushes. The caption posed a question about whether I could find them. My heart pounded in my chest. This wasn't just creepy anymore, it felt threatening. I blocked the user and reported the account to Snapchat. I also made all my social media accounts private and changed my passwords, hoping to prevent any further contact. I tried to go on with my life, but the experience had left me paranoid and constantly looking over my shoulder. About a week later, I was out with my friends at a local bar. We were having a good time, trying to forget the unsettling incident. As I was taking a group selfie to post on Snapchat, I got a snap from an unknown number. I hesitated but opened it. It was a photo of my friends and me at the bar taken from a distance. The caption inquired if we were having fun. I felt my blood run cold. I looked around the bar, trying to spot anyone suspicious, but it was packed and I couldn't see anyone who stood out. I showed my friends and we decided to leave immediately. We went back to my apartment and I contacted the police. I explained everything that had happened, from the initial snaps at the hiking trail to the photo at the bar. They took it seriously and said they'd look into it. But there wasn't much they could do without more information. I was terrified. Whoever this was, they were not only following me online, but also in real life. I stayed with a friend for a few days, too scared to be alone. During that time, I didn't receive any new snaps or messages. I started to think maybe the person had given up. Eventually, I had to return to my apartment. I was on edge all the time, jumping at every little noise. One night, as I was getting ready for bed, I got another snap. My heart sank as I saw the notification. It was from another new username. I opened it, dreading what I might see. It was a picture of my apartment building taken from the street. The caption referenced "Home Sweet Home." I immediately contacted the police again, and they sent an officer to my place. They stayed for a while, patrolling the area, but they didn't find anyone. The next day, I decided to take more drastic measures. I took time off work and went to stay with my parents, who lived in a different part of the state. I needed to get away and figure out what to do next. While I was there, I didn't receive any new snaps or messages. I started to relax a bit, hoping that the person had lost track of me. I stayed with my parents for a couple of weeks, and during that time, I decided to move to a new apartment in a different neighborhood. I kept my new address private, only sharing it with close friends and family. I also changed my phone number and deleted Snapchat, determined to avoid social media for a while. After moving, things slowly returned to normal. I still felt uneasy at times, but the constant fear began to fade. Months went by without any incidents, and I started to feel safe again. I reconnected with my friends and even started using social media, but I was much more cautious about what I shared and with whom. About a year later, I decided to go on another hiking trip, this time with my family. We chose a different location, the Great Smoky Mountains, to avoid any bad memories. The trip was going well, and I started to feel like my old self again. One morning, while I was hiking alone, I stopped to take a picture of a beautiful waterfall. I couldn't help but think back to that eerie experience in Denver, but I brushed it off, reminding myself that I was in a completely different place. As I posted the picture on Instagram, I made sure my account settings were private and that only my close friends and family could see it. I felt secure, thinking I had learned from my past experiences. That night, as we gathered around the campfire, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from Instagram, a follow request from a username that is similar to the one I used to get snaps from. I hesitated, debating whether to accept or decline the request. Curiosity got the better of me, and I accepted. Within minutes, I received a direct message from the account. It was a picture of the waterfall I had posted earlier that day, but taken from a different angle, one that suggested the person had been standing right behind me. The caption mentioned how beautiful the waterfall was and how much they enjoyed the view. Panic set in once again. I showed the message to my family, and they shared my concern. We decided to cut the trip short and head back to our cabin. The next few days were filled with anxiety and paranoia. Every time my phone buzzed, I feared it was another message from that account. Back home, I contacted the police again and explained the situation. They advised me to delete the Instagram account and avoid posting any personal information online. I followed their advice, deleting all my social media accounts and creating new ones with strict privacy settings. I also changed my phone number once more, hoping to break free from this digital stalker. For months, I avoided any online presence, focusing on my offline life and rebuilding a sense of security. Slowly, the fear began to fade, and I started to feel normal again. However, the experience left a lasting impact on me. I became hyper-aware of my surroundings and more cautious about the information I shared with others. One evening, while walking home from work, I noticed a figure standing across the street, watching me. My heart raced as I quickened my pace, but the figure didn't follow. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, but the fear lingered. A few days later, I received a letter in my mailbox. It had no return address, and the handwriting was unfamiliar. Inside was a single photograph of me, taken from a distance while I was walking home. The note attached simply said, "I'm still here." The terror I had worked so hard to overcome came rushing back. I contacted the police yet again, but without any solid leads or evidence, there was little they could do. They suggested installing security cameras around my home and being extra vigilant. I took their advice, installing cameras and changing my daily routines to avoid predictable patterns. Despite these precautions, the feeling of being watched never fully went away. Every time I left my house, I scanned my surroundings, looking for anything or anyone out of place. The constant vigilance took a toll on my mental health, but I refused to let fear control my life. Years have passed since those terrifying incidents, and while I've managed to rebuild a sense of normalcy, the experience has left an indelible mark on me. I'm more cautious, more private, and always aware of my surroundings.
Thank you for watching. If you found these stories gripping, don't forget to subscribe for more spine-tingling content. For another hair-raising tale, check out our suggested video. And if you're hungry for more eerie encounters, dive into our playlist featuring similar chilling narratives.